Went to a couple of the famous Maybowls at Oxford. My first ball gown was white net with pale gray swan feathers scattered over it, each one kept in place with a sequin. It was a very expensive original, originally, originally, but had been worn by a model in a fashion show, so I got it very cheap indeed. I felt like a princess when I were that grown. I remember one other dress, a wonderful crimson red lace. I'm sure my mother did without sinus and all sorts of other things in order to buy it for me. It had to be a good dress for Uncle Michael and Auntie Joan were going to present me to Queen Elizabeth in Buckingham Palace. First I had first I had to learn a full state curtsy. I had lessons from a funny old lady. She told me to practice and practice, always balancing something on my head, so I was quite proficient by the time I curtsied to the Queen and Prince Philip. It was a magnificent occasion. After a year at Oxford, I went back to London and an absolutely fascinating job. I worked at a film studio that made documentary films. They specialized in medical films, but also made some about motor racing and others that were just advertisements. My actual job was to choose the music for the film. I also learned how to edit, how to make soundtracks, how to mix, and all sorts of other things about filmmaking. I lived in my father's flat. By, by then, my parents had divorced, but they were still good friends, and it was nice that I got to know my father a bit better during that year when I was in London. What about my dream of Africa? Had I forgotten it? Absolutely not. I spent hours wandering about in a natural history museum. I continued to read books about animals, especially African animals, and even while I left my job, I knew that it was just filling in time. Always I was waiting for my lucky break. When that lucky break finally came, I was ready. It happened one Wednesday morning. Received a letter from my school friend Chloe. I'd I'd almost forgotten about her. We lost touch over the previous few years, and now, out of the blue, she invited me to go and visit her in Kenya, where her parents had just bought a farm. Kenya, Africa. You bet I you bet I would go. First I had to earn the money. Wonderful though. My film studio job I was paid a very small salary. I gave my notice and went back home. There I got a job as a waitress. I worked in a big, old-fashioned hotel just around the corner from the bridges. Perhaps you think it's easy to be a right waitress. waitress or a waiter. I quickly learned how wrong I was. There were so many skills I had to master in order to become a good waitress. I learned to deftly lift a slice of meat or a helping of vegetables with serving spoon or and fork neatly manipulated manipulated in one hand while holding the dish with the other. I got especially skillful at carrying several plates at the same time without a tray. My record was 13 plates with little servings of fish on each. Each weekend I put my wages and my tips under the carpet in the drawing room. One evening, one evening, when I had been working for 4 months, the family gathered around. We drew the curtains so no one could look in, and counted my earrings. How exciting! I now had enough money along with the small amount I had saved while in London for a round trip fare to Africa.